Now, I would like to move to our next speaker to continue on ماني's talk. يواصل لنا في الكلام بتاع ماني اللي هو ده ضابط شرطة من الشرطة البريطانية من ويستمنستر اسمه أليستير فيليبس، وهو بيسموه neighborhood police officer اللي هو ده اللي بيكون لصيق جدا بين نحن الناس فيما تتعلق بالجرائم وبالاشياء اللي بتحصل في المجتمع، ونسمع منه ده الجوب بتاعته. حيورينا مفهومه ورايه في المشكله دي شنو، وليش الشباب عموما بيقعوا في هذه المشاكل والسبب شنو، ويعمل لنا شويه هايلايت عليه، يعني بعض الادفايس انه نعمل شنو احنا كاباء لو سمعنا او اي حاجه طلعنا بها. Alistair Phillips, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it very much. What I just in introducing you to the audience in Arabic, I said to them, you will share with us from your neighborhood experience with communities any lessons you want us to learn from you, from what you have been doing. This is your job. And also, if there is any way, if you have any tips or signs we should look for, and if we see that happening in our household, we all got kids, we all got teenagers, what should we do in terms of where should we go? I mean, in terms of policing, what is your advice as a police officer? So the floor is yours, Phillips.
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to thank Manny for what he's just said. Some fantastic and really good points, which I'd say you've stolen some of my limelight. There was loads of stuff in there that I wanted to raise, and you've made some really good points. I'm going to start by saying to everyone that if you're joining this, you're doing the right thing, and this is the first step, is acknowledging that you might not know what your child's doing as a parent, and you can't always know, but trying to look for what to do is a step in the right direction, and it's really important. There's loads of signs that I can point out to you, stuff to watch out for, things that are warning signs for you. Sadly, a lot of them are actually going to be being a teenager and general stuff that a teenager in London is going to be acting like. So when I point out some stuff, I don't want anyone getting too upset or too worried straight away, because a lot of their stuff is just being a teenager now. And so, for instance, keeping late hours or poor family bonds are a couple of the things that are said as, you know, oh, this is a sign that your child might be involved in a gang. It also is a sign that your child is a child. So don't panic, okay? There's loads of things we can do, and some of the stuff I've sent out to Manny, I've emailed over a couple of documents, probably that he's already got, but they're ones that I think are worth sharing. And I'm not particularly tech savvy, but they might be ones that you can add onto the Facebook page. And they're just ones that you can read through, just in case. So don't worry if you miss something I say. They're all in these documents, and there's much better advice from bigger experts than me. So my understanding is that a lot of the Sudanese community are based quite closely around Westminster, and that's a base where a lot of the Sudanese community moved to when they came over to the country originally. So I control the whole of Westminster as a policing area. So I oversee all of the neighbourhood policing officers that you'll see walking around on the beat, and that will be engaging with the community. There's a lot of stuff that we can look out for. I want to go through a few things. The first thing, it's important to talk about being a gang, because Manny mentioned earlier that there were concerns that from the Sudanese community that are being targeted. This very much isn't the case. It is all and does come down at the end of the day to being something that's gang related. And the term gang is very flexible. And there's even children that I would consider to be involved in gangs, and someone that is heavily involved in a gang. If you talk to them, their honest opinion would honestly be, no, I'm not in a gang. And so there's quite a lot of, the word is quite flexible. And I think it's important that we all understand that, that there's ranging from what I would call an organised crime gang, where they're running things like county lines that Manny's talked about, where they're running drugs across the country, to a gang, which is just a group of people that commit crime together, to someone like some of them would just refer to themselves as business associates and entrepreneurs, where they see it as they're out there to make money, and these are just people that they're doing business with and friends, and they don't consider themselves a gang at all. And that drops down in grades, each one right down to just being friends at school and knowing someone that is a bit of a bad boy and commits crime, and associating with them and getting drawn into their world. Unfortunately, what you can find is just by running in those circles where, so I'm just going to try and bring my laptop up. Running in those circles where you know someone that isn't a gang can lead to someone getting stabbed or shot. And just running in those circles and associating with them can sometimes lead to bad things happening to your child. So it's important to try and make sure that you know who their friend circle is and who they hang out with, which can be very hard at times. So one understanding that if you ask your kid directly, is he in a gang, or is she in a gang, it could be a daughter as well. And they, even if they're being honest with you, and you have that honest, an open relationship where they would tell you stuff like that, they might not actually realise they are actually part of a gang and what I would consider a gang member, because they are on a fringe where they're stepped back from it, and they just do the odd thing to make themselves some money. For me, I'm not going to list and run through some of the warning signs which I would say is actually being a teenager, but what I am going to point out to a lot of parents, because I find it quite hard as a police officer. I'll go in, and in the past I've gone into a lot of premises and houses, and I meet a lot of parents who are quite shocked that we think their child's in a gang, and they're adamant that they're not. But in that bedroom of your child, you'll have an excess of wealthy objects, as in clothing, trainers, and computers, lots of designer gear. Mostly, for instance, I'm going to speak in generalizations a little bit here because it's not always the case, but we're looking at tracksuits, trousers and tops of greys, dark colours, blacks, and anything that doesn't light up brightly and make them stand out on the street, while you might have a wall full of trainers. As a parent, the thing I really want you to look out for, if you consider, and if you're a little bit worried, is if you walk into their room and they've got a lot of stuff that you've not bought for them, and you can't really account for how they've paid for this stuff, look up how much it costs and work out how they managed to pay for those items. Because I'm walking into rooms filled with expensive designer gear, and I know the parents haven't bought it for them, except they've not realised where this money comes from. So that, for me, is your key sign to watch out for. Does your child have a load of wealth that they can't account for? And then if they do, what should you do next? For me, there are neighbourhood officers going around. There's members of the council, be it your housing officers, etc., Manny, people that you can reach out to in the community that can give you advice. If you do see a police officer, and you're in regular contact with one of my designated neighbourhood officers, they are great people to go speak to. We don't have to treat everything as, what's the word I should use? We don't have to treat everything, and we don't have to arrest for everything. And that's not about us creating a criminal record for your child. If you've got concerns, if you come to us, sometimes that can be really a nice way of engaging and eliminating that threat that they could join a gang. And a lot of the time, from going from quite a young age, they could be on the fringe of a gang where they don't consider themselves to be in a gang, they're not in a gang, but they're hanging out with gang members and they're doing little jobs. Manny talked earlier about them being brought into a gang and manipulated effectively by elder members of the gang to join it. And they start by doing very small things like, would you hold these drugs for me? Hold this money for me is an even better one, where they're being given, here's 50 quid or 100 quid. I don't want the cops to find it on me. They won't search you because you're so young. The next thing is this very small young child, maybe 11 to 12 years old, something like that, is holding a load of money for someone. An old tactic that then used to happen would they then get robbed by another older kid around the corner and have all the money taken off. They then owe that gang member money. Those are some of the more sinister ways that they used to recruit into a gang, because then they'd owe the gang. But there's a lot more. It doesn't have to be like that. It can range in various different ways, but essentially just making friends with them, and they've got someone to hang out with and saying, look, if you want to be safe, you've got to hang out with us. And then once they've got that into them, that you need to start hanging around with us and be on the corner with them, effectively they're running in circles with gang members, and they can start being brought into their way of life. They start gradually, but slowly but surely, start doing little jobs for them. They see it as really positive because they're making money. There's girls there that they can hang out with and impress. So it's very easy for young kids to get persuaded and join into that. And as parents, it's not an easy job, but it's a vital job that you guys have got to try and persuade them not to go down that route. And I'd say key for me would be offering them different activities and making sure you do everything you can, try and be aware about what they're doing and where they're doing at all times. And having that oversight of knowing, where is he? Who is he actually with? What are they actually doing? Because I think that's key. I've seen between trying to stop that and have that knowledge about what your child's up to, and not just believing them always at face value. I would say it sounds horrific and awful, but I would say a really good way of having an idea is looking in your kid's bedroom when they're out, and discussing with them about what they're doing and see what kind of reaction you get from them. And this isn't a tool. I want to make this really crystal clear. Is in any way to I don't want anyone thinking that they're a bad parent because of this, or a bad person if their child has started joining gangs or starting associating with bad people. I know many police officers whose children have ended up doing this, teachers. It's people from all societies, people that should be able to spot these signs and know what to look out for, can equally find their children drawn into this, into gangs and organised crime, county lines. So it's not something that you should be ashamed of if your child is doing this, and it is something that you should try and reach out to as many people as possible if you do have these concerns. Let's see, what else can I talk to you about? I think that really covers most of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Things that I'd say are worth maybe looking out for as well, just to cover a few more. Graffiti got mentioned a lot as something to look out for your child. What I would say is postcodes, if they're scribbling stuff down like W9, W10, for instance, like kids that are not involved in gangs generally don't care what postcode they live in. If they are referring to, we call them postcode wars sometimes between the gangs, because they decide that they control an area by a postcode. So please look out for if they're scribbling down postcodes. Then there's initials as well, are always stuff to be looking out for. And if you don't know, it's worth talking to the local police. For instance, one of the local gangs in my area is Harrow Road Boys. There's also another gang called the Lisson Green Massive. So they write down LGM and HRB. And that might be scrawled. Some of them wear it as have chains with it written on their chains, things like that. And so it's worth looking at if they're putting down initials that you don't know what they stand for. That is stuff you can look out for. Further to that, I'd say, do they keep knives in their bedroom? Do they keep any type of weapon in their bedroom? Scrawled away with money or drugs? Does their bedroom smell of drugs? I don't want to criminalise any youths that are just, and kids that are just because they might have a small habit of smoking drugs. But the key thing for me would be that as parents, we look out for the signs that your children are using drugs. And obviously cannabis has quite a strong, distinct smell. But again, I will say from my point of view, there's a big difference between a child that recreationally uses some drugs, and I don't want to put them out to be a master villain who is involved high up in gang problems and will be shooting people, to someone that is actually drug dealing and stores it in their room. So it's all stuff to look out for. It's all stuff to be aware of. Manny, does that cover, do you think, the majority of the questions you had and problems you think?
Now, Phillips, before Manny, can I just intervene here? Thank you very much. Really, really very useful. And I can see there is a barrage of questions for you and Manny on the Facebook. But okay. One thing, just you mentioned it, and also I didn't mention it when Manny was talking. We are building already on site everything Manny sent us, and we will take everything you have said, all the videos. That will be a permanent web page. We will keep adding anything from youngest. So we are archiving everything you have just said. Now, one of the things, because I'm aware of the time, and also you might have to go. When this is a question being asked before even we start this webinar, they said, police, when really we should imagine we spot one of the signs you have mentioned, buying stuff which we have never given them money to do, and this is a problem for many parents. Actually, this is a very good note from one of the people who are watching. She said, or he said, very difficult to know what our kids are doing. It's very difficult. There's so much concealing, they don't let you know. But let's assume we have start to pick one of these signs or two signs. Do we immediately call the police to alert him? Or do we, I mean, the neighborhood policing in all community, I live in South London, we see them on the street, but maybe casually I'm walking, I see them. But now in the COVID, we don't go out. Do we immediately pick the phone and call the police to find the neighborhood policing, and then we tell them? Or what shall we do? I mean, the timing, when do we start calling the police? Or do you want to call us to start calling people like Manny in the social services before we talk to you? Or what is your advice? When and how to contact the police?
Firstly, I think you can call the police whenever you've got a concern. I think that's really important. And it's really important you feel free to reach out to us. The non-emergency number would be 101. But if you Google, if you go online and you write your area and Metropolitan Police or your area police, it should bring up the Met Police website where you can put your postcode or your address in, and it should give you a link wherever you live in London to your local officers and where they, so it's what their names are, and it has an email as well. So you can contact and reach out to them saying, I've explained exactly what you've got. And it might be that my son's going missing for days at a time, to my daughter's started disappearing on Fridays and Saturday nights, and I'm worried about her and what she's getting up to, things like that. And again, I'm sure Manny will be exactly the same. There's loads of other partnership agencies with youth engagement programs and things like that that are there, which are a really good point of contact where you can just see and ask for advice about, is my child doing something that it shouldn't be doing?
Excellent.
Or are they just a teenager? But yeah, you can feel free to reach out to your local policing team if you've got concerns. All police now are setting up for all areas in London have got a youth engagement and diversion team, which are very much more about they aren't seen as in sorry to phrase this correctly, they're not going there to enforce police action and arresting young kids. They're there to divert them away from gangs. And I would suggest that if you called 101 or went online, you could request some action from this youth engagement team, which are there to divert youth away from gangs.
Now, this is a question from a teenager, okay, because I got from everywhere it's coming to me now. There's lots of questions which can tell you about really useful what you said, Amani. Social media has betrayed the police. This is, I read you, I got it here. Are the enemies of society. This is what is being read. It's not necessarily my view or all the viewers. How can we as teenagers be able to trust the police when we are pressured to keep quiet? Even if the question doesn't sound right, but this is, I'm just trying to read as it is because it's good to show people they're following us. We are very transparent with their questions. So I read it to you. Social media has betrayed the police as the enemies of society. How can we as teenagers be able to trust the police when we are pressured to keep quiet? I'm not sure. I mean, is the police, do you think you have a good, do you think teenagers, particularly from Black and ethnic minority, do they have trust on the police so they can themselves try to cooperate with you to protect either themselves, or if they are in danger, they approach you? Or do you have any record of teenagers approaching you to help them?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have obviously people approach us all the time, ask for help, or we and
teenagers
ask for help. Yeah, of all ages. But one of the key things for me, and something that I think the Met as an organisation has certainly learned, is that we need to do more to increase that confidence between young BAME people and the police. There's definitely a lack, and it's all over the news at the moment. And we're doing, and I'm trying to set up more engagement between the community and the police, so we can talk about that lack of trust that certainly is there. I think social media, for instance, they make a really good point. We, as the police, have lost a huge amount and do constantly. It takes one bad story to lose a load of faith from the community. Where a video starts 3 or maybe 10 minutes into something going on, where the drugs or a knife have potentially been removed already and dealt with, and then it's just seen as, or someone's already assaulted a police officer, for instance, and then you see the police officer fight back or defend themselves. So it's very easy in social media, and I see bits of videos that have gone viral on social media all the time, which show horrific things police officers do. And then obviously being in my position, I get to see the full video or know the full facts of what's gone on, which in an unedited video, and it tells a very different story. What I would say is don't necessarily always believe everything you see online, or think, why is the video starting there? What potentially led to it? But I do understand all young people's concerns when it comes to that. And I would, there's also so many stories. I spent a lot of time working in South London, where you hear so many stories about, oh, the police did this, and they talk about policing terms or something, the word bully van, for instance, which was something that was a term from the 70s. And it's been stuff that's been passed on from generation, and it's actually potentially someone's grandparent talking about why the police are racist. And it's something that is then still held within that community in a story that is passed, why you shouldn't trust the police. And the people that are police officers have changed multiple times. You know, we don't work in the police for 50 years. changed multiple times, and those people that dealt with them badly have long gone. So what I really would encourage is just take that police officer you meet at face value and treat that police officer as a person, and not just necessarily refer to them as the uniform that you see in front of you, but give them that chance as an individual, and say, this is my problem, please help me. And I'd be very, very shocked and would like to know if you did not get a good service from them, or if they did treat you badly.
No, Philip, thank you very much. But I wish we have, we thank you very much, Manny. We will have to bring you, there's lots of stuff here, which you're doing quite great. But I have two things before I let you go, because I think Manny will continue with us and he will do. But one thing we had with Sussex Police when we were in Brighton, this organization at the University of Sussex before, we had a very good relationship with them as an organization, okay? And we have them helping us in the training. We communicate with them very well. I suggested to some black forum here in London, but I'm not the expert on this, but part of the black getting trust, more confident in the police, if the police can open the slide door when you're doing the training on how to deal with ethnicity and black and so on, if you could maybe invite some from the community or maybe from the teenagers, just think about it. I'm not asking you the question, but think about it. So you can say, okay, look guys in South London or whatever, we're having on this day a training. We can let you attend maybe the morning of that day so they can see how you guys have been trained. Maybe when we see it at the teenagers, we can point you, oh, that's not the way you know about this teenage. But this is just a food for thought, and I'm sure we will carry on with you. Two quick questions, and I really want about the time. One of them, they said you have talked a lot about gang, and I think that's a real problem. If there is any quick 1, 2, 3 other things you think that are also quite serious, you haven't mentioned them. The gang is the key topic, we know that. But if there is any other issues you think have led to the deaths of our youngest on the street, you talk about drug, not necessarily you talk about, because there is drug part of the gang and there is drug who smoke drug. I mean, imagine I smoke alcohol or I drink alcohol or whatever. If there is any other issues apart from the gang, you think they're important also to think of? Away from the gang, nothing to do with the gang. Anything else? Okay.
Yeah. So first, I just want to quickly touch on that other point that was mentioned. We do in our training all this stuff, especially now. It's changed all the time, and each year we evaluate the training. So as in police training, one of the things they do is actually get in young people or people that used to be young who are now adults who talk about their experiences about being stopped a lot, or about how they've been treated by police when they are stopped. And so we take them in and they give a talk to police officers. So we get their account for kind of what's going on. Then on the non-gang side, this is my personal opinion. This is just my view as a police officer for 15 years. In London, the reason people are getting shot and stabbed, and I won't talk about specifics about what's happened, but my opinion why everyone gets stabbed and shot, there is not a domestic incident, is actually because there's some involvement with gangs or drugs. Okay. It's disputes with drug dealing, it's trying to control an area, or gangs, for instance, when they're young and they're in a gang, one of the big problems is it's about respect. It's about showing that you're not scared, doing something to earn yourself like a reputation on the street. And that's why there's a lot of violence. It is very rare, and again, I'm talking about generalizations here, it's very rare that we have random stabbings which aren't linked to a gang. And
I can see Manny also mentioned here 90% are either drug or gang related, which is coincide with what you said. Just one last question. Thank you very much. If girls, you mention girls sometimes, but do you also see girls in gangs? I mean, we haven't heard about much of that, but so you think they're the same? Although we hear most of the deaths of boys, but if girls also involved in gangs from your...
Yes. Girls 100% are involved in gangs. We don't talk about it. We don't see them and we don't talk about it as much, but generally because it's the boys that are getting stabbed, it's the boys that are getting shot, it's the boys that are more involved in the criminality. But girls are, there he goes, Manny's saying, girls are a hidden element.
Major role, he said, yeah.
They get involved in all the parties, they end up holding drugs, guns, they date, they are taken advantage of sexually for gang members and things like that. And they also, at times, have been involved, they can be involved in egging the boys on to do certain things. So yeah, they are very much involved in gangs as well.
Okay, Alistair Phillips, thank you so much on behalf of the whole who are watching you, not just here. Really, thank you very, very much. It's Saturday, it's a treasure time. Thank you very much. And you have answered lots of the questions. I picked the one which are quite, if you like, the big one coming to me, but there's lots of questions here, but we will stay engaged. Man is here. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you.
بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ميلاد، بلاد ميلاد. بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ممتد لحد حدود الحد، وطن لا فيه هم لا غم، فقط نسعى.